Justice Stephen Breyer is retiring, and Joe Biden, to complete a campaign promise, says he's going to appoint the first black female justice to the Supreme Court. I didn't like it when Ronald Reagan said he was going to appoint a woman. I didn't like it when Donald Trump said the same thing. When are we going to get to what MLK strived for, a society where we evaluate people based on content of color rather than color of skin? Guess who said this back in 1975? And I quote, "I do not buy the concept, popular in the 60s, which said, 'We have suppressed the black man for 300 years, and the white man is now far ahead in the race for everything our society offers. In order to even the score, we must now give the black man a head start, or even hold the white man back to even the race.'" And Senator Joe Biden continued, and I quote, "I don't feel responsible for the sins of my father and grandfather. I feel responsible for what the situation is today, for the sins of my own generation. And I'll be damned if I feel responsible to pay for what happened 300 years ago," end of quote. What happened to that guy? That guy now says this.
"I will select a nominee worthy of Justice Breyer's legacy of excellence and decency. While I've been studying candidates' backgrounds and writings, I've made no decision except one. The person I will nominate will be someone with extraordinary qualifications, character, experience, and integrity. And that person will be the first black woman ever nominated to the United States Supreme Court. It's long overdue in my view. I made that commitment during the campaign for president, and I will keep that commitment."
Consider this. Joe Biden is Catholic. Just 20% of the nation is Catholic. Biden is the nation's second Catholic president. If people voted based on their religion, Biden never could have become president, and we wouldn't have 6 Supreme Court justices who are Catholic. The black population is roughly 13% of the nation. Barack Obama got elected and reelected. If people voted based on their race, Obama never could have been elected, let alone reelected. Ronald Reagan saw it 40 years ago. Massive inflation that we haven't seen since today. In his own words, inflation is as violent as a mugger, as frightening as an armed robber, and as deadly as a hitman. And right now, your retirement accounts are under attack thanks to the inflationary policies of this administration. If you've not yet called Birch Gold, the only people I trust to help you diversify your 401ks and IRAs into gold, then you are missing the boat. Actually, you're treading water without a life vest. Birch Gold has your life vest. Let them help you convert an IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. With thousands of satisfied customers and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, you can trust Birch Gold to help protect your savings. Just go to birchgold.com/Larry right now to get a no-cost, no-obligation info kit. This comprehensive 20-page guide reveals how gold and silver can protect your savings and how you can buy them under the umbrella of a tax-sheltered account. So do it right now. Go to birchgold.com/Larry. That's BIRCH gold.com/Larry. Do we really want to have a color-coordinated society as opposed to one based upon competence? But 1/4 of the squad, Ayanna Pressley, tells us there's only one way to be black. There's only one way to be Hispanic. There's only one way to be queer.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up. Because we need you to represent that voice.
And then there's Harry Reid.
I don't know how anyone of Hispanic heritage could be a Republican, okay? Do I need to say more?
And poor Clarence Thomas, called everything but a child of God by the ladies on The View.
What about this Tim Scott from Florida, Republican, who says that, I'll read it to you. He says Biden's pick would be a radical liberal with extremist views.
Well, what else is he going to say?
The ones being suggested are amazing.
Ketanji, Rick Scott, yeah. Ketanji, Judge Jackson clerked for Justice Breyer.
Yeah.
And so that would be a wonderful way of continuing his legacy.
But, you know, these guys, they're going to say anything, they're going to try to make it like she didn't earn her.
May I say something? Now, I got no problem with Whoopi Goldberg having a gig on The View, but are we really taking our marching orders from somebody named Whoopi? Didn't they name a cushion after her? She's a comic. And here she is expounding on Ukraine, expounding on matters of state, expounding on the economy. She's a stand-up comic. And Joy Reid is too.
Earn her way.
Right.
There. That's why I started the conversation by saying, you know, they're talking about it as an affirmative action. Not only is that just...
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they're saying. I mean, it's just so... And that's why I said...
Well, when you say that my only criteria are going to be black and female, it does sound like, I don't know, affirmative action. Let me ask you something. You get on a plane and you see a female pilot or a pilot of color. Do you want to know about diversity, or do you want to know whether or not he or she aced flight school?
Listen, 111 years, we're way past affirmative action.
You could make the case that somebody like Amy Coney Barrett was put in there because she's a white woman who they say, well, she'll go against abortion rights, and she's a woman. So that was deliberate, I think.
You mean you cannot oppose abortion if you're a white woman without it being a setup? Without it being deliberate, I think. You know, there was a Supreme Court case dealing with University of Michigan, 2003. And Sandra Day O'Connor wrote the majority opinion. And she said, we're going to need to have race as a factor for admissions for another 25 years. Do the math. That puts it at 2028. It's now 2022. That means, according to that Supreme Court case, we're only going to be having this for 6 more years. Democrats want to keep it forever.
Clarence Thomas, a black guy, a black man, a justice, okay, I'll give it to him. He's a smart guy. But he is to the right of Attila the Hun, this guy.
Clarence Thomas, I'll give it to him. He's a smart guy, but he's to the right of Attila the Hun. I've never heard that line before.
And they put him in there thinking,
They put him in there. Put him in there. He's walking down the street. They say, hey, you, black man, come over here. We're putting you in here.
Black man will go against voting rights, which is what he does.
A black man will go against voting rights, which is what he does. You think Clarence Thomas don't want people to vote? You think Clarence Thomas wants voting foreclosed if you're black? Really?
It was a terrible...
And it's a very tricky business they're pulling over there when you think about it.
It's a very tricky business. Those guys over there are pulling over there. You see, what they call voter suppression, some of us call voter integrity, that you ought to be who you say you are. And what's wrong with photo ID? Most blacks support photo ID.
And not to mention the fact that Mitch McConnell has no concept of the law when it comes to the Supreme Court.
They know.
Mitch McConnell has no concept of the law when it comes to the Supreme Court. But I, Joy Behar, stand-up comic, I do.
The law, they're not following it. They don't want to follow it.
No, and he's allowed to not follow it.
It's terribly disrespectful to appoint.
They know the law, but they're just not following it. You know, you add up all the IQs of all these people up here, you might be able to get plant life.
Someone like Clarence Thomas with his philosophies to the seat.
Someone like Clarence Thomas. It's almost a 4-letter word, Clarence Thomas.
Of Thurgood Marshall, a civil rights.
I know.
Yes.
And
it was
also with his
wife right there.
With his wife's activities involving the insurrection.
Let's not even get into...
You know, I once asked this guy who hated Clarence Thomas, name a decision that Clarence Thomas participated in, concurred in, wrote a dissent on that you absolutely hate. He couldn't think of a single case. Wonder why.
Something we
Because
should
that's
really
the whole
discuss.
show. And all we have to do is start talking about her, and we'll be
Ginny,
here the rest
yeah, we should talk about that sometime.
Not today.
I got a headache. I got a headache. You know, when are they going to interview the guy who said, you know, I wanted to vote on November 3, but I just couldn't figure out how to do it? They require ID, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where the DMV is. I just had no idea. I wanted to vote, but where is that guy? Where is that person? Find me that person. In 2008, as a percentage of those who were eligible to vote, more blacks voted than whites did. First time that ever happened, despite the voter suppression. How did that happen? And there was a study from professors from major universities, and they looked at the studies and they said, you know, despite the alleged voter suppression, we can't find an effect one way or the other.
But if minorities are harmed by mandating voter ID and other anti-fraud measures, such as removing inactive voters from registration rolls, why does the evidence all point to the opposite conclusion? A recent Census Bureau report found that voter turnout in 2018 climbed 11 percentage points from the last midterm election in 2014, surpassing 50% for the first time since 1982. Moreover, the increased turnout was largely driven by the same minority voters Democrats claim are being disenfranchised. Black turnout grew around 27%, and Hispanic turnout increased about 50%. None of this comes as news to anyone who pays attention to sober facts instead of inflammatory rhetoric.
Don't you love it when these white saviors like Joy Behar tells black people how to think?
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
And remember when 50 Cent came out in favor of Trump because he wanted his taxes lower? And she had to remind him that...
You heard about my ex-boyfriend, right? 50 Cent and his support of Donald Trump.
Yeah, what's going on between you? I saw your tweets and I go, wait, what's happening? Because you said he was your favorite ex-boyfriend and then what does he do? He's supporting Trump?
He says he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes, which, by the way, isn't a plan of Joe Biden's. That's a lie. So he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes because he doesn't want to go from being 50 cent to 20 cent. And I had to remind him that he was a black person.
Now, black people think that Barack Obama walks on water, except they ignore things he says that are inconsistent with their victocrat worldview.
One of the great changes that's occurred in our country since I was your age is the realization there's no one way to be black. I take it from somebody who's seen both sides of the debate about whether I'm black or not.
So, Ayanna Pressley says there's basically only one way to be black. Joe Biden tells Charlemagne the God, you ain't really black if you don't know whether or not you want to vote for me. Chelsea Handler had to remind 50 Cent that he's black. Notice a pattern here?
Damn!
I'm Larry Elder, and this has been The Larry Elder Show for Epic Times. I will see you next time. Larry Elder here, and I've got some great news for you. If you're tired of the censorship in this country, then you're in luck. You can go over to epictv.com and watch honest programs that don't spin the facts. EpicTV.com is a brand new, no censorship video platform where you can watch not only my show, but other deep documentaries, great program, wholesome movies that you can watch with your entire family. So head over to EpicTV.com. I'll see you there.